problem. It is the problem of the National Assembly who are supposed to pass those figures. And yet those figures, they interact with them for a very short while. Mr. Speaker, there is a problem in that treasury. And if this revolution or these demonstrations or these questions that are being asked are not focused on changes in that treasury, Mr. Speaker, the youth will not have had their answers. Mr. Speaker, that treasury, there are people who have stayed there all their lives. From the time they were employed, the promotions they got, they have never moved until they are now very senior people. The way they made the budgets in 1980 is the way they want to do the same way they want to do it in 2024. That they will still buy a lot of food for entertainment, flowers, while outside here, they would be, ignoring the issues that go to the core of the people. So, Mr. Speaker, I believe that there is a need to look at that treasury, Mr. Speaker. And if the President is going to listen to what the Senate is saying, one of the things he should pick is that we need to bring fresh thinking into that treasury. We need to sack people in that treasury, particularly the senior people in that treasury. We need to bring people in their 30s, in their 40s, who have probably served in their private sector. People who are coming out to think differently, people who will process these figures that are brought to members of parliament rather late on time. People who will be given that authority to do what needs to be done to this country. Mr. Speaker, we have a central bank, again, that thinks the same way it was thinking years ago. The same stuff, they were there years ago. Young people are not getting opportunities in those areas, Mr. Speaker. Just like Treasury, young people are not there. If you go there, Mr. Speaker, the senior people, all of them are people who have climbed over the years. There's no fresh thinking. There are no new ideas. And I'm telling you, I can guarantee you, Mr. Speaker, that next year they will be buying new cars again. There will be a budget for flowers. There will be a budget for, somebody here was saying, fuel cards of hundreds of thousands. Mr. Speaker, as we look introspectively, I think we need to sweep the house called Treasury. We need to drain that swamp, Mr. Speaker. We need to bring new people into that Treasury, Mr. Speaker. In the finance department, we need new ideas. We need a fresh thinking about that Treasury, Mr. Speaker. When people refuse to change, then change must change them. What the young people have shown us is that they have capacity to ask questions and think outside the box. These are the people that we need in that Treasury, Mr. Speaker. People who will stand and tell us, you don't need 20 security people working with you. What are you afraid of? Mr. Speaker, we need to rationalize everything. And this can be done only by somebody who is from outside. Somebody who will look inside that treasury with a clean eye, a fresh eye, a young person who would say, it doesn't make sense to do this and this. It didn't need people to go and riot, Mr. Speaker, for these points to be understood. We need fresh people to go inside there. And Mr. Speaker, I have no doubt, Mr. Speaker, that Professor Njuguna Ndung'u must go. The head of treasury there must go. The head of finance, they must go. The director of budget, they must go. Because these are the people, Mr. Speaker, who interacted with these figures, ridiculous figures. 803 million for cars for 3 offices, Mr. Speaker, for a whole year. And then they bring them to members of parliament to crucify them here. Mr. Speaker, something needs to be done. And that treasury also, Mr. Speaker, as we drain the swamp and the changes that need to be done, we also need to ask the national cohesion to look into that treasury. Mr. Speaker, counties like Tana River County, continuously over the years, you will find a budget line of water, there's nothing. A budget line of tarmac roads, there's nothing. 5 years, 6 years. Why? Because we don't have any people in that treasury who are involved in the budget making process. Mr. Speaker, we need, as we drain this swamp, to have a clear indication where are these employees of treasury coming from in terms of where their counties are from. Mr. Speaker, you will come to be shocked that if the National Cohesion Committee here is to give you the figures, many people will be coming from certain areas. And it is those certain areas that are given the bulk of the cake of this country, Mr. Speaker. So we have to answer to these questions that are being raised in Treasury, Mr. Speaker. Treasury is the biggest culprit in this whole thing. Treasury is the one that was going to burn this country because they are bringing wrong figures, putting wrong priorities, and telling us, go and borrow, go and borrow, go and borrow, and telling us there's no other way. And Mr. Speaker, most of the times, members of parliament, when they're interacting with this, they have faith in those people who are advising them. And the experts are the people who are in treasury. But when you look, Mr. Speaker, the kind of advice, when you start studying those figures, Mr. Speaker, we have a very big problem in that treasury. Treasury has been a big letdown. Treasury is the one that has been advising us, even for the division of labor, the division of revenue. They were denying the counties money. Mr. Speaker, Treasury has a problem. And before we resolve this problem, we will never solve the problems of this country. Mr. Speaker, all the senior officials in that treasury, they are as guilty as everybody who doesn't wish this country well. So, Mr. Speaker, I pray one of the recommendations should be to sweep that treasury clean. New people to come in, to look at our processes and to deal with these matters that has been raised by our young people. There are no new ideas. And I'm telling you, I can guarantee you, Mr. Speaker, that next year they will be buying new cars again. There will be a budget for flowers. There will be a budget for, somebody here was saying, fuel cards of hundreds of thousands. Mr. Speaker, as we look introspectively, I think we need to sweep the house called treasury. We need to drain that swamp, Mr. Speaker. We need to bring new people into that treasury, Mr. Speaker. In the finance department, we need new ideas. We need a fresh thinking about that treasury, Mr. Speaker. When people refuse to change, then change must change them. What the young people have shown us is that they have capacity to ask questions and think outside the box. These are the people that we need in that treasury, Mr. Speaker. People who will stand and tell us, you don't need 20 security people working with you. What are you afraid of? Mr. Speaker, we need to rationalize everything. And this can be done only by somebody who is from outside. Somebody who will look inside that treasury with a clean eye, a fresh eye, a young person who would say it doesn't make sense to do this and this. It didn't need people to go and riot, Mr. Speaker, for these points to be understood. We need fresh people to go inside there. And Mr. Speaker, I have no doubt, Mr. Speaker, that Professor Njuguna Ndung'u must go. The head of treasury there must go. The head of finance, they must go. The director of budget, they must go. Because these are the people, Mr. Speaker, who interacted with these figures, ridiculous figures. 803 million for cars for 3 offices, Mr. Speaker, for a whole year. And then they bring them to members of parliament to crucify them here. Mr. Speaker, something needs to be done. And that treasury also, Mr. Speaker, as we drain the swamp and the changes that need to be done, we also need to ask the national cohesion to look into that treasury. Mr. Speaker, counties like Tana River County, continuously over the years, you will find a budget line of water, there's nothing. A budget line of tarmac roads, there's nothing. 5 years, 6 years. Why? Because we don't have any people in that treasury who are involved in the budget making process. Mr. Speaker, we need, as we drain this swamp, to have a clear indication where are these employees of treasury coming from in terms of where their counties are from. Mr. Speaker, you will come to be shocked that if the National Cohesion Committee here is to give you the figures, many people will be coming from certain areas. And it is those certain areas that are given the bulk of the cake of this country, Mr. Speaker. So we have to answer to these questions that are being raised in Treasury, Mr. Speaker. Treasury is the biggest culprit in this whole thing. Treasury is the one that was going to ban this country because they are bringing wrong figures, putting wrong priorities, and telling us go and borrow, go and borrow, go and borrow, and telling us there's no other way. And Mr. Speaker, most of the times, members of parliament, when they're interacting with this, they have faith in those people who are advising them. And the experts are the people who are in treasury. But when you look, Mr. Speaker, the kind of advice, when you start studying those figures, Mr. Speaker, we have a very big problem in that treasury. Treasury has been a big letdown. Treasury is the one that has been advising us, even for the division of labor, the division of revenue. They were denying the counties money. Mr. Speaker, Treasury has a problem. And before we resolve this problem, we will never solve the problems of this country. Mr. Speaker, all the senior officials in that treasury, they are as guilty as everybody who doesn't wish this country well. So, Mr. Speaker, I pray one of the recommendations should be to sweep that treasury clean. New people to come in, to look at our processes and to deal with these matters that has been raised by our young people with an open mind, Mr. Speaker. People to be told the truth that we can't make budgets like 1980s. You still come to make the same budget in 2020s, Mr. Speaker. Things have to change, and I think this liberation must be domiciled in that treasury. All the questions that are being asked are to do with money. And Treasury, Mr. Speaker, is very guilty. They have kept quiet. They are not saying anything. Treasury is very guilty. They are the ones who know where our debts are. They are the ones who have held all those secrets. Treasury, Mr. Speaker, must be cleaned. Treasury must be cleaned, Mr. Speaker. And even if we do all these changes, we change ministers, we change whoever, we appoint committees, multi-sectoral, what if Treasury is not changed, Mr. Speaker? They will still come back with the same advice to the president next year, and this problem will not go away. So I laud the young people for fixing their eye and focusing on the questions of money to define the third liberation. My appeal is that they shouldn't go to the extent of being blamed again because of destruction of property and killing, and the killings that come with the resistance and everything. What should happen is let them focus the questions they have risen about Treasury, Mr. Speaker. Treasury. The changes must, from central bank, I know they have security of tenure, but we make these laws, we can make them again. The governor, his deputy, the deputy directors, all the central bank, it needs to be drained. The CS Treasury, the deputies, and everybody, they all need to go, Mr. Speaker. We need new people who are dealing with things with new eyes. If we don't fix the Treasury, Mr. Speaker, this third liberation will have failed. And we will have let down our people, our young people who are in our houses, because all of them are asking the same question. Treasury. What can we do to clean this treasury? And Mr. Speaker, we need a fresh start. And I would be one of those people who would be so happy to see changes happening in that treasury, Mr. Speaker. You can't have people staying in the same ministry 20 years. What do we expect? They will bring us the same budget they were doing in 1990. The same thinking they were having in 1980. It's the same thing they will come to tell us, and they will come there with figures, and you don't know. You cannot look at a 40-page document within 1 week and make very good suggestions. You'll be told, oh, that road of yours is there, that bridge is there, so support this document. And that's what people do. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, they take the blame, while Treasury, Mr. Speaker, are the ones who know what is happening. Mr. Speaker, we need to focus and I hope the people will make suggestions, and this Senate, as we summarize what we are presenting as our thinking, the question of Treasury, Mr. Speaker, will be central, because these are the people who have been letting us down, Mr. Speaker. Treasury, we need to drain the swamp at the Treasury. This is the whole issue about the demonstrations, about the questions our young people are asking. Mr. Speaker, I support that motion. Thank you.
Senator Professor Kamar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to add my voice to this motion, and to thank you and the leader of majority and leader of minority for allowing time for us to ventilate on what is going on in our country. Mr. Speaker, I was in South Africa with the Senator Mungatana, but we were not able to rest without watching you in this Senate. So we kept going back to the records in the evening to make sure that we are with you. And I want to thank senators, because I felt extremely proud to be a senator in this time because of the contributions from these members of the Senate. I really felt happy that at least we are holding the bull by the horns, as they call it, and this Senate has made all of us proud by the contributions that they have made. Mr. Speaker, I will not therefore repeat some of the things that have been done. I will just capture a few areas. I'm a member of the Education Committee, and I will touch something on the education, the issues that were highlighted by our youth. But before I say that, Mr. Speaker, I want to condole with the families that lost their loved ones in this demonstration, and pray that God gives them peace and comfort at this very difficult time. Our youth, Mr. Speaker, questioned our taxation vis-a-vis our application of the taxes that we have. And they actually made us think. As I listened to the senators, I said, it looks like it had to take the Gen Zs for us to actually think about how we apply our taxation. And I think this was really timely, and it is time that we actually discuss ourselves and question ourselves about even how we spend within Parliament itself. I will touch on the education sector, Mr. Speaker. And in touching with in the education sector, as raised by GNCs who have gone to school and have not been employed, the challenges of going through school are still real in this country. In the year 2003, Mr. Speaker, basic education in Kenya was supposed to be free. It was declared by Parliament that it was going to be free. But basic education in Kenya is from primary to secondary, up to the Form 4 level. But has it been free? We need to ask ourselves, has it been free? Because that was one sector that was supposed to have been taken care of by our taxation. And this would have made everybody happy if our tax was used to give everybody this human right called education up to the basic education level. Then people would have gone to look for training and would have moved on. But this has not been the case, and this is why our youth are saying our parents have struggled. They have paid right from primary school, secondary school, after university, and we have no jobs. It is time that we relooked at that, Mr. Speaker, because Kenya has endorsed a lot of agreements, both in the national and continental, as far as education is concerned. In fact, in the year 2008, free secondary education was pronounced by the then President Kibaki, and we are supposed to have free day secondary education. But today we know that there is a lot of payment that is being done. Are these legal, and can they be stopped so that actually we can have fairness as far as basic education is concerned? I dare say, Mr. Speaker, that fairness in basic education, since education is a right, would enable everybody to be able to move on with in their lives when they go for skill development. But as long as we have any fees being paid, we cannot call it a human right, because it means it is those who are able who will have their children moving in education. Mr. Speaker, I will never forget your speech when I joined, I was the Minister of Kibaki, and we came to Kilifi to give a new university, 2 universities in 2 days to the coastal area. And you talked about this kind of discrimination yourself, Mr. Speaker, and the other day you actually told the president, now Bwani is Kenya. And we were all proud and we were very happy. And this is what some regions in Kenya are still asking for. Are we equal? Are we being treated equally? Education is the equalizer, according to Mandela. And I think we should all remember to make sure that if there is anything our tax must do, it must provide education for everybody, so that every family, whether rich or poor, can actually have their children progress in an equal manner. Mr. Speaker, I listened to the House, and there is one proposal that came forth which I would like to support. The proposal from our colleague Senator from Kiambu, Senator Thangwa, that we need to make sure that free is free in education. The problem currently, Mr. Speaker, and we are all aware, is the fact that there is something called bursary. And we are trying to bring free education through bursary. Our youth are telling us that even that bursary is released in a very discriminative manner, that not everybody who is needy is given that money. In our days, bursary belonged to what we said were the people who were not able, and anybody who was able was not given bursary. But these days, nobody knows who gives the bursary. But more still, especially when it comes to this House, bursary has moved from being a national agenda to the counties. How did the governors decide that they are going to give bursaries? Mr. Speaker, in the Education Committee today, we went through the analysis from the budget office on what was budgeted for, on the budget and the expenditure of the year 2022-2023 in the education sector. Shockingly, we have governors who have spent 80% of whatever they have given to the education sector in bursaries. What are they looking for in these bursaries? We asked ourselves, and I'm going to bring a motion to this House so that we ventilate on that. Because if the education sector, whatever education was devolved in the Constitution, which is the early childhood education and vocational technical training sector, if those sectors are not funded because we want to give bursaries to the tune of 80%, or even there was an 85%, one county gave 85% for bursaries, duplicating what is going on in the national government, it then means that we are not even able to take care of the sectors that have been devolved. This House must interest itself in what was devolved. And what was devolved is early childhood and vocational training center. Mr. Speaker, when we were in Turkana, I remember the chairman of CBIC telling us that Turkana, the whole of Turkana was becoming, what zone was it? He actually said that it was, whatever had been promised in the documents that they had been done had never been done. Reason, governors are changing the agendas midstream. You request for money for education, and then you divert the same money from education to whatever other agendas there are. It is very important that we interest ourselves in what is devolved, Mr. Speaker. It is therefore very important that even when we talk of bursaries at the county level, we need to ask ourselves, do we have that money? Have we taken care of early childhood? Have we taken care of technical training, vocational training? If not, then let's focus on the things that are ours first. That be it for education, Mr. Speaker. The second area I wanted to touch on education is the one of higher education. 2 weeks before the problem that we had a meeting between the Committee of Education and the Minister and the various sectors, because we wanted to know, to understand this new formula that is being used. The formula itself is good, because there is a return of what we used to call boom those days. There is a return that is coming through help, but how is it going to be applied? Because what our youth are asking, the questions they are asking have to do with how to apply the money. Are we sure that everybody is going to get the same money, the same money? And this is what we want to do, to look at, even when it comes to higher education. Because again, when we say education is a right, it must be a right all the way through. The loans are there, the bursaries are there, which are coming through the different sectors. There's what we call the university funding, funds, which are being given to every student. We want to appeal to the Ministry of Education that they must be straight and clear, and they must take care of everybody so that the equality that education brings can actually be realized. The third one, which was raised, was about fair employment. Mr. Speaker, some of us were involved during the promulgation of the new constitution. Not even that, in the Bomas process. The main problem that we had in the Bomas process was the inequity between this country. That there was inequity in development, inequity in resources, and members of parliament at that time, because I was not a member of parliament, but I was in a committee that was discussing development. It came out that members of parliament were even fed up of moving from one ministry to the other. You go and beg for one hospital in one place, and then you go to another ministry to beg for one road, and then you go and beg at the Minister of Water for money to dig a borehole. All those things were supposed to be things of the past with a new constitution. Because it was very clear we are doing two things. We were devolving power and devolving resources. Have we devolved resources to the level that development is equitable in this country? When you hear our youth talk of unfair employment, it means there are people who feel others are more employed than others. And we need to start scrutinizing. We need to be very honest about this, and we need to be answerable when it comes to employment. And again, we need to actually know whether we are prepared, everybody, for these positions. Mr. Speaker, the issue of employment again touches on the unions that we have seen that have been rising up. I know our youth waited on the issue of employment of nurses and employment of doctors. But we need to ask ourselves, Mr. Speaker, these doctors are asking for implementation of agreements that had been negotiated. Our CSS must ask themselves the big question. When the negotiations took place, a CS was involved. There is no way another CS comes in to denounce what a previous CS did. And I say this with all due respect, Mr. Speaker, because I was also a CS. And I had to handle negotiations of higher education that had been done in 1997 when I was a lecturer in the university myself. But you arrive in the ministry and you find that there were agreements that were signed, and you cannot run away from them. So it is so ironical that we are discussing negotiation, and yet there were negotiated agreements that were even signed, whether it is in health or in education or in whichever way. Whatever had been signed has been signed. It's not helpful, Mr. Speaker, to have our medical doctors sleeping outside Afia House as they are doing right now. We don't have doctors in hospitals. We don't have doctors in our medical centers at the county level. So why are we leaving professionals to beg for what is rightfully theirs if that signature was done? Mr. Speaker, it is my belief that whatever savings government is doing, and I'm so appreciative that the president himself has said he is going to cut down, and make savings. Whatever savings they make, the first thing is our health. Because health is another right that we cannot run away from. And it is very important that we have these doctors recruited. We cannot run away from the fact that this was agreed. The only thing we can do is to renegotiate for the future, but not for the current president. I would therefore like to ask our sister CS of health that there is no need to fight a war that eventually we lose. Because we have fought so many wars, our governors have been fighting with nurses, eventually they pay. It is very important to stick to the law and to stick to the fact that we have agreements that we must do. So as our youth are raising the same, we are not going to wait for the same youth to go to Avia House to make demands that we already know. It is very important that now that we have opened our minds, and they have opened our minds to the fact that the realities are before us, that we deal with those. Mr. Speaker, I really would like to support. I don't want to take more time because a lot of things have been raised by our own colleagues. I would like to end by saying, Mr. Speaker, I support, and I'm very proud of this Senate. Thank you.
Senator Omtata.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you for the opportunity to speak to this very important motion. And as I rise to speak, Mr. Speaker, sir, I first of all send my condolences to the families that lost loved ones. I also look at those who have lost livelihoods, those who have been maimed. And I'll hear this voice, the blood of the innocent, that is crying out for justice on our streets. When in 2011, a group of Kenyans, including myself, peacefully occupied Jogoo House and evicted Professor Ongeri, demanding that he accounts for 4.6 billion shillings that had been given to free primary education, the worst that was done to us is that non-state actors were hired to come and splash human feces that has been made into a sludge. We were covered in human feces. When we did not budge, they sent a contingent of the JSU. After about 3 days, they arrested us. And we were taken to industrial area, and we are alive today. After the president, and by the way, and the courts acquitted us, I should say that. After the president addressed the nation on the 25th of June, claiming criminals had invaded parliament and staff, I took it upon myself to do a hospital crawl. I crawled across hospitals in Nairobi at midnight to try and identify who these criminals were that the president was referring to. At the matter, there were 2 people admitted with rubber bullet wounds, shot at point blank range. At Mbagathi, they had treated more than 40 people for gunshot wounds and discharged them. At the Nairobi hospital, there were 2 people who were admitted. At Kenyatta, I saw 3 bodies, dead people, dead kids, in fact, they were young people. 15 were in ICU with the gunshots to the head. 148 were in the wards with injuries to multiple parts of the body, including a young boy who was about 14, 15, gunshot through the shoulder. I looked at these people, none of them was a criminal. And yet the president had gone on national TV and claimed that criminals had come out, and that's why there was justification for the use of that force, and he said that at all costs, force would be used. So, I see the blood of these children, the mayhem, and the amount of violence that was used here, not justified at all. People cannot be killed under the Constitution of Kenya 2010 for exercising their rights. The right to life is a right that is protected in our Constitution. It begins at conception, ends at natural death. One thing, during the operations, I've been to very many street demonstrations. The first thing that I noticed was out of character was the command structure of the police. I was able to identify some policemen walking alone, not accompanied. And I began wondering, is there a command structure? That was in the morning. So the question was, how was the police operation planned and conducted? Was there a central command? Who were the field commanders? Who were the sector commanders responsible for each section of the streets? And how have they accounted for the deaths and injuries that happened in areas under their command? How did armed men, for the many times I went on the street to demonstrate, there could be there could be policemen in civilian clothes, but they were never armed. They could participate in an arrest, but I have never seen a person dressed in civilian clothes shooting at the public. I've never seen it. Was this a militia? And to whom does it answer? How did these armed men get to join uniformed police? Do the police standing orders, do the force orders allow for that? How many police officers were issued with live bullets? And have the bullets been accounted for? Why was there so much random shooting? How can you have so many people in hospital with gun wounds for a small demo that took place here? What was the president trying to justify? And can he get away scot-free from claiming there were criminals when he can't produce one criminal who was shot dead on our streets? Why is the internal affairs unit of the police being dismantled since the president came into power? Why has Mr. Koome, to whom the unit answers, transferred almost all competent investigators out of the internal affairs unit? And for those who don't know, the internal affairs unit was set up and is properly equipped to investigate crime by the police. They receive reports from the public, they receive reports from fellow officers. IPOA has got no capacity to investigate policemen. IPOA are civilians. Most of them don't understand the operation orders of the police. There's a special unit that deals with this. Why is it that this unit has been dismantled? Starved of funds, competent officers transferred to outposts, and the unit left as a shell. Some of these officers, Mr. Speaker, sir, were trained at a very high expense by the public outside this country in various jurisdictions, but they are now doing clerical work in outstations since the appointment of IG Koome. Such that right now, as we speak, there is no capacity in the police to investigate what happened on the streets of Nairobi. A capacity that had been built to ensure that if there were any issues, they would be investigated thoroughly by the police who understand how police are supposed to operate. Now, the blood of these children who were killed is crying out for justice. Some were killed in this hallowed house. The young man who was making fun in the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, sir, why did that young man have to be shot dead? We cannot sit here and discuss these niceties that we are discussing here, complaining and not making a case, yet people have buried children whose only crime was that they went out to say that this country can be managed in a better way. If there's anything that this House can resolve to do and still retain its dignity, is to demand for justice for these kids. We have no other business. Because this country cannot be run the way it's being run. The mayhem that happened across Tomboya Street on the other side of the city, for some of us who walked there and saw, it's unbelievable. Forget what happened here. It was unbelievable. The number of people who were shot and killed on those sides is unbelievable. Why are we still having abductions? We are seeing stories in the media that some young men have been abducted after the event and have disappeared and bodies have been recovered. Why is life so cheap in this country? So all that we are speaking here, unless we demand justice for the kids who are killed, unless we demand justice for the blood which is crying out to be atoned, there's nothing we are doing here. We are just repeating, we are just going back to the same usual thing of lulling the country to sleep, pretending that something is being done when absolutely nothing is being done. President Ruto claimed on national TV that there were criminals. Can he produce a single criminal who was involved in this business? He has a better intelligence than we do. Can he point out to among those dead people, can he isolate one person who was a criminal that his security forces were justified to kill? This is not how to run a country. You can't brand citizens criminals and kill them and say you are going to do it at all costs. What makes him think that his life is more precious than that of the fellow on the street? If we have to do anything, we must demand accountability for that blood. We must demand that President Ruto produces the criminals he claimed invaded parliament, if they are not citizens. President Ruto must tell us who are these people in civilian and how come that civilians were mingling with armed police, with the uniformed police and shooting people. The time when people said words and they got away with it, I think they are behind us. We are talking about the Gen Z. Not all the Gen Z are educated. Not all the Gen Zs are. There were got Gen Zs who came out, who dropped out in class 8, who didn't get an education. And I think about 60% to 70% of the Gen Zs are people who are already dropped through the cracks. And they all came out. People have said that these people are banning schools. I would challenge anybody to tell me where in Kenya was a school burnt. No school has ever been burnt in Kenya. And I will repeat it, no school has ever been burnt in Kenya, because what I have seen, because a school is not a dormitory. When these kids were burning dormitories, what statements were they making about this governance of this country? I have never seen a situation whereby kids have burnt books and burnt classrooms. Why is it that all the burning was about dormitories? What statement were they making? Were they crying out for justice? Then you come to say that schools were burning. Not a single school has ever been burnt in this country. Or I'm not aware, but what I've seen is that the dormitories have been burnt in schools, and I know we have got schools that don't have dormitories, but they are still schools. So why were the kids burning the dormitories? We saw another terrible thing happening the other day on our streets. Doctors sleeping outside in the cold, trying to enforce a CBA. Such an important human resource wasting away when we have in a country where people are dying for lack of medication, for lack of attention. And it cannot be true that there's no money to pay these people. You just need to read the reports of the Auditor General, and you'll see that this country is being looted dry. So these people should be employed. We are a Republic of Kenya, and the name Republic is an ideological statement about this country. We have to be governed as a republic. We must be governed as a republic. We are not a kiosk. We have a constitution that says how power should be acquired in this country. And that power, when we have elections, why do people go to Bomas when the constitution says that elections must terminate at the constituency? The next presidential election must end at the constituency for matters to be proper. There's been a call of other things. I hear I don't know if the cabinet has been dissolved or stuff like that. That is like putting balm on a wound. What we demand, or what I personally think is ready to happen, is that the entire Kenya Kwanza administration, led by Mr. Ruto, must vacate power. The call that Ruto must go is not an idle call. It's a call whose time has come. It's a call whose time has come. Mr. Ruto told us that criminals were on the streets. He has not produced a single criminal. You cannot be told lies every day.
Senator Omtata.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Please have your seat. I made myself very clear on how we are going to conduct ourselves during debate on this motion. Inasmuch as we suspended points of order, I said let us be responsible in the way we debate and let us be factual. You cannot call the president Mr. Ruto. This is not a Kamkunji. This is the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. Proceed.
Okay, I can call him Dr. Ruto. And President Ruto. I'm finishing. Dr. Ruto, His Excellency the President.
Proceed.
But he never ceased being a minister, so all those titles apply to him, if my English is correct. So I'm demanding that President Ruto vacates office as the only honorable thing to do. He's unable to balance a budget. It has collapsed. Everything around him is collapsing. So he cannot say that his juniors should bear the burden. The ball stops with him, and the call that President Ruto must go is a call that must be applied. And as they say, a fish begins rotting with the head. So, and among my people they say, a river does not flow higher than its source. And when you look at the sun, you must blink. Justice is crying out. Our children have died. Something that has never happened in this country. The president has called them criminals. And the president cannot continue sitting in power when the children have died. And he said you do anything at whatever cost. When the Constitution says you can't do anything at whatever cost. So my call is to associate my voice with those who are saying that the president vacates office. There's no room for all these things we are doing here, and we start off with a new slate. Mr. Speaker, sir, anything less than that will not avenge the blood that has been spilled on our streets. A street that is hallowed, a street that is recognized in the Constitution as an arena for engaging politically. As the arena whereby, when this institution fails, the people of Kenya invoke Article 1 and go to engage. When you desecrate such a venue, you don't do anything. There's not even a call that these things should be investigated. Instead, they're trying to say that we go and have dialogue to assuage, to see how to distort what is happening, to do whatever, to see how. I just look at these people like prison guards who are fighting for who becomes the chief warden. Then they learn that there's a prison break. So they all forget about what they are fighting for. They say the first thing we must do is to ensure that this prison is not destroyed. Because their business is the prison. Their business is to keep the people in the prison. So they are now coalescing, forgetting about the fight they were having, who becomes the chief warden. Now they are saying the prison must be kept intact. We are not going to allow that. This country has moved. The government that has to govern this country must govern by law. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I reiterate my words that if really the president values this country, he should do the honorable thing, fall on his sword. President Ruto, fall on your sword and retain, if you have to retain in order. And retain in.
Well, 1 minute, you wind up your thoughts, Senator Mtata. Just 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. What I was saying is that, like in the old days of the Roman soldiers, when they felt that they had brought dishonor to the country, and they were even, the dishonor was so bad that they could not even let another person kill them, they fell on their swords and died. That's the only way they regained their honor. And the only way Ruto can regain in honor is for him to fall on his sword and let the Kwanza administration die, so that Kenya can have a new beginning. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you.
At that juncture, we will defer that motion and proceed to the next order. Clerk, kindly call the next order.
Order number 9, motion, approval of sittings of the Senate to be held in Busia County.
Senator Mtata, take your seat. Now, honorable senators, we had concluded debate on this particular motion. I will therefore proceed to put the question. That aware that the Senate of Kenya is established under Article 93 of the Constitution and its main role as set out at Article 96 is to represent, serve and protect the interests of the counties and their governments. Further, aware of the critical role that the Senate plays in the interlinkage between the national and county levels of government, and the need to enhance the interaction between the Senate and the county governments as a means of bringing the Senate closer to the counties and the general public, acknowledging the success made during the sittings of the Senate outside Nairobi, held in Uasin Gishu, Kitui, and Turkana counties in September 2018, 2019, and 2023 respectively. Further acknowledging the recommendation of the Senate Business Committee that a sitting of the Senate be held away from the traditional premises and Parliament buildings, Nairobi, during the term of the 13th Parliament, and the subsequent resolution of the Senate made on the 8th of March 2023 to hold plenary and committee sittings in counties for a one-week period within the month of September in every session of the 4th Senate, except during an election year, with the objective to, 1, promote the role and work of the Senate and enhance public awareness regarding the business of the Senate and Parliament in general. 2, highlight existing and new opportunities for engagement in the legislative process. 3, develop and strengthen partnerships at the county level of government. And 4, provide an opportunity to members and staff of county assemblies to learn and share best practices with senators and parliamentary officers. Now, therefore, pursuant to Article 126(1) of the Constitution, the Senate resolves to hold its plenary and committee sittings in Busia County from the 23rd to the 27th of September 2024. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 10, motion, report of the Select Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Social Health Insurance General Regulations 2024 and the Social Health Insurance Tribunal Procedure Rules 2024 division.
We'll defer this order. So we'll proceed to the next order.
Order number 11, the Houses of Parliament Bicameral Relations Bill, National Assembly Bills number 44 of 2023, division.
That particular order is also deferred. Next order.
Order number 12, the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 40 of 2023, division.
That order is also deferred. Next order.
Order number 13, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment number 2 Bill, Senate Bills number 52 of 2023, second reading.
Now, I see two names of honorable senators. I want to be persuaded that they want to contribute to this motion. If not, then kindly log out so that we know exactly how we are transacting this order. That order is deferred. Proceed to the next order. Next order, clerk.
Order number 14, the Heritage and Museums Bill, Senate Bills number 8 of 2023, second reading.
The Chairperson, Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare. That order is deferred. Next order, clerk.
Order number 15, the Agriculture and Food Authority Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 13 of 2023, second reading.
Honorable Senator James Murango, the Chairperson, Standing Committee on Agriculture. That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 16, the County Hall of Fame Bill, Senate Bills number 18 of 2023, second reading.
The Honorable Senator Miraj Abdullahi Abdurrahman. That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 17, the Rice Bill, Senate Bills number 19 of 2023, second reading.
Senator James Murango, the Chairperson, Standing Committee on Agriculture. That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 18, the Law of Succession Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 20 of 2023, second reading.
The Honorable Senator Veronica Maina. That order is deferred. Next order, clerk.
Order number 19, the Public Holidays Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 31 of 2023, second reading.
Senator Karungo Thangwa to move. That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 20, the County Assembly Services Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 34 of 2023, second reading.
Senator Mohamed Chute. That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 21, the County Public Finance Laws Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 39 of 2023, second reading.
The Honorable Senator Kathuri Murungi. That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 22, the Street Vendors Protection of Livelihood Bill, Senate Bills number 41 of 2023, second reading.
Yes, Senator Mungatana, what is your intervention?
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I beg your pardon because I was misreading that it was the one for Senator Okenyuri, and I thought you had mentioned Kaduri. So I was just wanted to bring to your attention. I apologize, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Esther Okenyuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I'm the sponsor of the Street Vendors Bill, that's widely known as the Protection of Livelihood Bill of the Senate, number 41 of 2023. Mr. Speaker, this bill was actually widely also given a lot of attention with the Senate Trade Committee, whereby I serve as the Vice Chair of that committee. Mr. Speaker, the Street Vendors Bill seeks to provide a framework.
Senator Esther Okenyuri, you first need to move, and then you put your justification on the bill.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the Street Vendors Bill be read for the second time. So allow me to proceed. Mr. Speaker, the Street Vendors Bill is actually an act of parliament that seeks to provide a framework on how street vending should actually happen in this country, and with a lot of preference to our county governments, because this is an issue that touches on counties also. Mr. Speaker, the bill also argues that small-scale Trade contributes significantly to this country's economy, and largely as the hustlers, as we called them during our campaign period, Mr. Speaker. So this is a bill that puts their interests at the front line, Mr. Speaker, because these are the people who largely contribute to our economy. In Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, if you walk this afternoon, you will one way or in another meet a street vendor. They are either selling small items as biro pens, others are selling food items, others are doing music, Mr. Speaker, and we also even have others who are doing stuff like shows of magic whereby people can watch and pay. Mr. Speaker, in other developed democracies, street vending is a huge thing, and there are actually designated places where they actually do their vending. Mr. Speaker, the last time, if you remember, when we went with you on a powers and privileges committee visit to Turkey, I had an opportunity to visit some of the vending zones that had been set aside for street vendors, and I was impressed to see the levels of hygiene in those areas, and I compared that to my country back here, and I felt we surely need to have a very organized way and dignified way that our street vendors can make money for themselves and for our county government and national government, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, street vending has largely been looked at as a very small business. This is not a small business as people look at it. This is a huge sector, because when you look at it, those are the ones who are running this economy, Mr. Speaker. We do not have them having huge money that they are putting in this sector, but whatever little they are putting together is what is enabling this economy run. Mr. Speaker, I also want to mention that in the recent past, we've seen headlines of how street vendors have been handled badly in this country. And I want to mention the county government of Nairobi. We saw some time back a disabled lady, I think in Embakasi, who was selling eggs, and the eggs were actually thrown away, and the lady also carried away with her wheelchair, Mr. Speaker. We shouldn't be witnessing such kind of harassment to people who are contributing to this economy. Instead, we need to look at how better to place them so that they do their business in a dignified manner, so that it's also even easy for the county government and national government to collect tax from this kind of businesses. Mr. Speaker, another reason why we need to have street vending have designated areas, so that we have order, we restore order in the cities. Look at the city of Kisumu, look at the city of Nairobi, look at the city of Mombasa. We want, when we have visitors coming in, or those who are coming from the rural areas, can have a clean city, Mr. Speaker. This can only happen when we have joint effort to the stakeholders in this sector and the government, so that the street vendors don't look at this bill as one that is curtailing their business, but look at it as one that is making them do business easily. Mr. Speaker, when I was actually coming up with this, we had an opportunity to have most of their organizations come to the table and present what they felt needed to be accommodated by this legislative proposal, and we took up most of the suggestions that were brought up by the street vendors. And I'm also looking forward that we are going to have political goodwill, especially from the county government. Mr. Speaker, look at a county like Busia. A county like Busia has street vendors from the Kenyan side and from the Ugandan side. So we have to coexist in a manner that the Kenyan vendors are making money And now, in the spirit of good neighborhood, the ones on the Ugandan side are also contributing to this economy, but also watch out to avoid exploitation, especially for our local vendors who are doing business, Mr. Speaker. And this case also applies for the ones who are down in Namanga, bordering Tanzania on the other side, Mr. Speaker. You clearly see why we now need these regulations, so that internally we have a way of doing business, and we also have a way of doing business with our neighbors without one party taking advantage of the other party, Mr. Speaker. Street vending is not just about the ones who are selling small items. I actually mentioned right now we have young people who play guitar on the street. If you go to Mamangina Street, you will see young people who are playing very nice music with their guitar. This is also a way of informal trading, but then they are doing it basing on the talents they have. So it's not just about objects or items that you can carry. It's about also providing a service and make money out of that service that you're offering to the public. And mostly we are seeing that in form of entertainment, Mr. Speaker. So this is a timely bill that I need support from this House, Mr. Speaker, so that we provide a conducive environment for our young people, for our women, for our men who want to better their livelihood by putting something in their pocket, and at the same time assist the government in generating revenue that will go a large mile in financing what activities we have in place, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if I also mention, in other countries, when you look at how they are handling generally the issue of informal trading, is completely different. And it's because in those countries they had an opportunity to make laws way earlier. So when someone is coming into a business, they already know what is required. Even you who's building stalls to provide an avenue for people who want to engage in formal trading, you will design the stalls in a manner that follows what the law prescribes, Mr. Speaker. But when you look at our case here and want to place emphasis on counties, counties will quickly want to tax people who are selling on the roadside. Let's say women who are selling vegetables, men who are selling groundnuts. You can't tax people when you do not provide a conducive environment for them to thrive in their business, Mr. Speaker. It would be a very good idea when a county government has provided a designated area for men who are selling groundnuts, so that they are selling their items in a comfortable way, in a clean environment, with security, so they will not even feel the pinch when they are contributing to the economy through taxing. But when you tax people and they cannot see the value of the money you're taxing them, then you are likely to face resistance when you are coming to introduce these regulations, Mr. Speaker. So it's my hope that the 47 county governments will actually cooperate, and there was already goodwill because the chair of the COG Trade, Governor Otuoma, the governor for Busia, when we were collecting views from the different stakeholders, COG were among the ones who brought their views, and that was a good show of political goodwill. But then enforcement is one issue that I know we are going to witness challenges, because already in other different towns, strategic planning was done in the 1960s and 70s, which does not tally with the recent developments we have currently, Mr. Speaker. So This legislative proposal is very timely, and it accommodates all people from all walks of life who want to do any informal kind of trading and make money, than engage in other activities that we are discouraging the general public from engaging in, especially the young people. As a young person, I know how difficult it is to still go to school, have academic qualification, but still lack something to put in your pocket. Mr. Speaker, so street vending is not just about the ones who walk around the bus stations selling whatever items they have, but it also accommodates the ones who have any other kinds of informal trading. And that's why this legislative proposal seeks to recognize, because there are kind of activities that are currently being carried out and not formally recognized in our systems. The moment a business is recognized, you are equally able to even benefit from what the circles are issuing in form of loans, what the government is issuing to assist those who are trading. But when you are not in an organized manner, it actually even becomes very difficult for you to seek support to broaden your business, Mr. Speaker. The other issue is about our authorities. Our authorities, there's a bill here we dealt with, especially on county licensing. We are looking at authorities that will be having many businesses to get money from. But my plea is that these authorities should not treat the traders in a punitive manner, because we look forward to encouraging these traders to actually do well in whatever areas they are engaging in. So the moment you want to punish innocent citizens who have no idea on what already is expected of them, we are going to discourage them from engaging in business, Mr. Speaker. Initially in this country, we've seen different administrations in our then local councils, the defunct councils we had. Defunct councils had a challenge even moving the traders from one point and relocating them to another point. And we are still experiencing the same challenge, Mr. Speaker. So this bill will actually provide for a structured way of moving traders from one point to their designated areas. When this is actually done, it even makes it easier for you to look for what you want. If you want maybe to purchase certain kind of baby items, you know where to go and get them, Mr. Speaker. I also saw this arrangement when I traveled to Dubai. Street vending happens even late in the night. Why? Because security is provided for those businesses. And those businesses have no problem with paying taxes because they have security, there is water, there is sanitation. So people are comfortably doing their businesses without little challenges here and there that we are currently facing in third world countries like Kenya, Mr. Speaker. So I really feel this House needs to support me in seeing this get to fruition, Mr. Speaker. In my own county of origin, Mr. Speaker, we have several women who sell vegetables on the roadside. They have not been able to move to the market because we do not have a structured way of accommodating them in those markets. Like I said, strategic planning for different towns was done way back in those years, and we need to readjust to accommodate such kind of people who are engaging in business currently. Mr. Speaker, all this that we are suggesting is not a new thing. All of us want to align to sustainable development goals. In different countries across the world, informal trading is not a new thing. It's only that in Kenya we now want to put this into law so that we do not have people who are in informal trading being harassed. Every other time I watch the news, I read statistics and stories of very sad cases of where women who are coming all the way from Mlolongo coming to sell their product in Nairobi sometimes end up with their products being confiscated all together. Mr. Speaker, we do not want, why would you confiscate someone's items, still subject them to arrest, and eventually destroy those items? Once you arrest someone who is actually engaging in such kind of trade, if they have already been penalized, don't go ahead and destroy their property, Mr. Speaker. Our mantra as the Kenya Kwanza government was to dignify the work that people are doing. The moment you want to treat people in that manner, you are already doing the opposite of what we anticipate, Mr. Speaker. And I want to urge the young people across this country to acquaint themselves with this legislative proposal. I might not be in a position to visit all those areas and see the different small trading that you engage in. But by me representing you with this proposal in this house, I believe it will go a long way in assisting so many other people who will come after us, Mr. Speaker. So this is a timely bill, and I want to conclude by saying that there are so many other aspects I might not have touched on. We have done even, I went ahead to do a comparative analysis of what is happening in other countries, why that kind of having small trading areas set aside works better, why it's not working better in those countries, what have they done to better that kind of trade. Mr. Speaker, like if I mention, we largely talk about Singapore having done very well, Mr. Speaker. Singapore has more than, by the time they were in the late 1960s, Mr. Speaker, they had more than 24,000 street hawkers out of a population of 2 million. Currently, I know that must have grown. Mr. Speaker, in Kenya, the percentages are very high. You cannot bury your head in the sand and say we do not have such kind of traders. Even when you're on traffic, you have someone who's trying to sell you a wall hanging. You have someone who's trying to sell you some flowers to put in your flower vases in the house. Mr. Speaker, that's the kind of businesses we want to harness and put in a structured format so that they can equally make money for themselves and also contribute effectively to this economy, Mr. Speaker. And I know this will actually open a wide area for county governments to make money that is contributing to their own sources of revenue, which is one thing I've been largely encouraging the county chiefs, Mr. Speaker. The county chiefs, I am always encouraging them to look for ways of beefing their own sources of revenue instead of waiting for what the national government is going to allocate to them. Own sources of revenue will actually open up ways of sorting out the different bills they have, Mr. Speaker. So the moment we structure this kind of businesses in the different counties, I want to believe, Mr. Speaker, that we are going to raise more revenue to developers as a country and as the different county governments that we have, Mr. Speaker, so that we do not have the discussion we had recently of wanting to point an image of devolution not working. We have actually had different visits, Mr. Speaker, first in the trade committee where these ideas originated from, and we've seen businesses working. We've seen what it is like when you support such kind of small-scale business people to venture in their different areas best, Mr. Speaker. So the moment we see such working, we shouldn't encourage the discussion of devolution not working. It's only not working in those small areas that have turned out to be corrupt, Mr. Speaker. And I know we are now in agreement that we want to drain the swamp, Mr. Speaker. And draining the swamp begins from the Senate, Mr. Speaker. I have always said this Senate must bite, Mr. Speaker. Let us not look like we are a house of lamentations, Mr. Speaker. So as I actually take my seat, this is a bill that needs our support jointly, Mr. Speaker. Decisions we as a Senate make are life and death decisions, and that's why it's very important for us to spare a moment and accommodate proposals that originate from different angles, Mr. Speaker, because business, same as academic work, actually does not know if you're rich or poor. You are trying to have something in your pocket so that you can survive the next day, Mr. Speaker. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to stop my contribution at that point.
So who is your seconder?
Mr. Speaker, I'm very happy to see my chair is in the chamber, the Senator for Kajiado, Senator Seki. I want to welcome him to second this bill.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and I take this opportunity to second this important bill on the street vendors and protection livelihood bill. It's bill number of 2023, and I want to say that, Honorable Speaker, this bill has come the right time when we are in the position where we are still on the area where we have county governments and the devolution is underway, where counties are making progresses in different aspects, particularly on issues where we want to say that the common mwananchi is struggling through the MSMEs and small businesses, Jua Kali sector, people from different sectors, particularly on business, small businesses, are struggling in our street, in our towns, to make food on the table, to put that food on the table. Honorable Speaker, we deliberated as a committee on this bill, and we invited quite a number of stakeholders, including the street vendors, small business enterprises, Jua Kali sector, and quite a number of other business enterprises. And we deliberate on the bill quite well, and we want to say that I want to say on the onset that this bill has touched quite a number of areas on issues of the way on how businesses, the counties, municipalities will also handle the small, medium people or even businesses in our counties. Honorable Speaker, at the clause 4, we found that it is good that we give the Cabinet Secretary to have one database of the entire country to all the businesses in the county, particularly the vendors in the country. And this will be liaison with county governments, which are more in touch in the county governments, particularly in our streets, in our businesses, in our towns. And that clause tries to explain on how the movement of businesses will be taken care of, so that the database can be kept by the ministry in the entire country, but more with the liaison of the county governments. Section part 3 of the bill, we were looking at it at the area where we bring the designation of vending zones. We look at it like to designate the vending zones is a very important aspect, which we normally, in fact, it is not there in most of our counties, in most of our big towns, municipalities, most of the big municipalities like Nairobi, Eldoret, Mombasa, Kisumu, and many other municipalities that we do have. Honorable Speaker, this is where, and I think it is something that Honorable Senator Hazy has tried to put it very clearly, that we have done quite a number of research in other counties, in other countries, and we found that it is good that we have to define the restrictions and of free areas where we categorize free zones. We brought in the issue of restricted vending zones and non-vending zones. These are important aspects in this. These are areas of importance in this bill. Honorable Speaker, we further went down to this bill further went down to bring the sanity in areas of our planning of our towns, and to explain on how, where is suited, or which area is suited for vending, which one is not important due to population, due to density, the area which are density populated. And this bill will help the common mwananchi and even the movement of people, because you realize that in most of the towns, it is hardly for us to get even people getting even out of town. There are a lot of congestion of peoples and even vehicles, just because you just find somewhere, you put your items on the ground and you start selling. Other people are even selling outside, you know, they go out and even just place their goods and services, or even goods in outside their door shops. So that is where this bill tries to protect, to try to protect the interest of those people also who have businesses in their shop. So I think this is it's a very important bill. And Honorable Speaker, this in section there is a way where we also looked at how the vendors will be protected, and the rights of a vendor is designed in a way that county government officials or county askaris or officers from the ministry, from the county, will not just decide to, vandalize or even take out the vendors' goods because they have not paid the fee for the county. This bill tries to protect even the vendor. So with this bill, I think it is a win-win situation where the county government will have the sanity on how to do their things, plan their towns, and also protect the protection of a vendor, a businessman, a business person, a business, small enterprise that is coming up. Because we have seen quite a number of, officers or even business people losing their properties. People, the business people losing their goods, through askaris coming to, pick them, even sometimes harassment of business people. This bill tries to protect the vendors. So, and the hawkers will really see the hope of, or the light on the tunnel, because this bill tries to protect all this. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to support this bill. I want to say that this is the right time where county governments will be in the right track, and it will also give county governments and county assembly a chance to do more regulations on how to implement these restrictions, particularly on how it will suit the issues of planning in their counties. So I don't want to take much of the time and give more other members to deliberate and even discuss on this bill, but I want to say that this is a very important bill to the counties, and it will go hand in hand with the bill that the same committee has approved some times back, and I'm happy that it was even there this afternoon, the county licensing bill, which has been, in fact, act now, because it has been assented by the president, and this bill will definitely go hand in hand with that bill. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to second. Thank you very much.
Honorable Senators, I will now proceed to propose the question that the Street Vendors Protection of Livelihood Bill, Senate Bills number 41 of 2023, be now read a second time. Senator Tabitha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I do rise to support the Street Vendors Bill 2023 by Senator Esi, and I want to really congratulate her for taking her time and walking the journey with this great bill. And I keep on saying, do not forget where you've come from, because Senator Esi has given her story, her journey, and this is an indication that she has not forgotten where she's come from, in terms of ensuring that you remember also the other people, because this bill touches mostly on the small-scale business people, and much more specific, actually, on them having, an environment that is suitable for them to be able to conduct business. Mr. Speaker, apparently, today we seem to be few, and so I was seated actually to Senator Esi, next to Senator Esi earlier, as you're calling the owners of the other bills, and I'm so proud of her because as the others were absent, she still said she was ready. She's always ready. A good indication for the kind of young leaders that we see, we have, and they are always prepared. And she has taken us through. I've also perused through the same bill. I've looked at some of the clauses, case example clause 5 of the bill, Mr. Speaker, which talked about a vending license under the section shall include the following: the applicant's name, the type of license, the vending location, the contact of the applicant's type of goods and services to be sold, the type and date of vending activities where applicable, time of... In short, it includes a lot of details that are very important, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we've been having illegal vending or vendors, selling illegal goods. And so without this particular data, as it has been indicated in clause 5, then it becomes difficult to be able to have a reference point of who was the vendor, where they are located. And also without this information, then also people evade to make or pay their dues as required. Allow me to narrate, Mr. Speaker, as far as the County of Nairobi is concerned. earlier last year I had received some complaints from the people of South B and South C on unscrupulous vendors who've decided to put their goods, and these are, to be more specific, these are the construction items, the sand, the ballast, outside people's gates, within the courts, within the estates. And people have decided to start selling and merchandising sand and ballast, among other hardware materials, something that really disturbed the people of South B and South C, issues that I was also able to raise through the Nairobi County as to why these people had the confidence to, just come and disrupt the well-organized estate structures and start setting, and putting their merchandise out there without the consent of the other estate dwellers. So with this type of bill, with this street vendors bill, Mr. Speaker, and as I've also deeply looked at it, it's going to set aside. Clause 4 talks about a proposed vending zone plan by the county. So if the county is going to adhere and ensure they set aside the zones and license as per the zones, we will not be having where people are waking up and deciding to set structures anyhow, anywhere in these different counties. There will be a plan. There will be a better structure and strategy on ensuring that there is adequate space, there is adequate room. There is also an organized marketplace whereby people are able to specifically know that in this particular area, they can be able to get the merchandise or the services they actually do need, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, looking at where we are with the political temperatures, also our young people, the Gen Z, who've come out and they're very, as I said earlier, they're very informed, very well articulative of their issues. They're very innovative, Mr. Speaker, and it is through such organized